Okay, well let's do this. Let's talk about some Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. This week we read chapter 5 called An Excess of Phlegm. I mean, what could that be about? Adam, what happens in this chapter?
In this chapter, Harry arrives to the burrow and is greeted by those he knows and loves. And female characters decide that it's fun to bully other female characters.
I'm glad we're on the same page about it. I was like, but again, this is like another moment where I'm like, oh, sorry, are you done with your...
No, that was it.
Yeah, okay.
That's what happens in the chapter.
I was like, this is a great example of, once again, where I'm like, Joe, you're revealing too much of yourself. Like, I am removed from the book itself. Like, I'm just like, I can't even think about the characters, really. I'm just like, this is how you want this scene to be.
Yes, Joe reveals once again too much about herself. We will obviously talk about it. But while I was reading it, I was like, it's one thing. Whatever, we'll talk about it. Okay, welcome to the chapter.
Welcome to the chapter.
Harry and Dumbledore have arrived at the burrow. They walk up. Now, immediately off the bat, Harry's saying it's so early in the morning. We find out it's actually 1 a.m. later in the chapter, but it's so early in the morning, he can just barely hear some chickens clucking in the roost or in the coop. Or whatever.
Would we say 1 a.m. is early in the morning? I'm thinking more like 3.
Late at night. Yeah, I feel like that's late at night.
3 a.m. or 4.
I want to say this as a person who spent time in the Philippines in a house where the neighbor next door owned chickens and a rooster. Roosters? This is what cartoons have led you to believe, that roosters cock-a-doodle-doo.
At dawn.
At dawn. It's a 1 and done. Honey, it is not. It is all day. It is all fucking day. They don't stop. It is psycho. I did get used to it pretty quickly because you just start to like block it out. But at first I was like, we gotta figure this out. And then the other thing that was happening at RJ's house was there a bunch of like stray dogs around, and they will just start barking. They're like, once one starts, they'll all just start being like, rah, rah, rah,
together.
Just once it starts, the twilight bark.
Yeah.
Once it starts, you cannot stop it. It will wake you up in the middle of the night, as it did me, but it's fine. Those are the things. So I wanted to share a little bit of my personal history with chickens and roosters. I felt like that was a good opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I love it.
Molly greets Harry. She's surprised at how early they are because Dumbledore had made it seem like it was going to take a little bit longer to get to there. So she's surprised, but also Tonks is there. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but how long did he think he would be like at Horace's? Like if it's like 11, he got to Harry's house at 11 p.m. Yes. He went to Horace's, got there at like maybe we'll say midnight at the latest.
I mean, yeah, but also they apparate, so it's not like there's travel time. I don't
remember Harry didn't pack. And then they had that like combo.
Right.
So
maybe they
will
left.
give them an hour. But that means he was at Horace's for almost an hour, and then they had their little conversation in the broom shed. Like, I don't know.
They had to walk through the town. They apparated to Horace's village.
Okay, that's true.
They walked through the town.
Okay.
They had to discover the house was in disarray.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
And then they had the conversation, which honestly, that conversation took 6 minutes.
I know. That's why I was like, they weren't even there for more than like 15, 20 minutes, but sure.
And then they apparated to the burrow. And then I guess that conversation in the broom closet took 45 minutes. Who knows? But it's 1 a.m. now. Yeah. Molly greets them. Tonks is also over having a cuppa with Molly. And Tonks, first of all, fucking watch her again. I do not like this catchphrase. I think it's dumb.
Do you know what's so funny? I have only heard No, one person in my life here in England says watcher like unironically.
Oh, okay.
He's a chippy, aka a carpenter.
Okay.
That I worked with before I left my job, named Ash. And he will genuinely, when someone like comes in, like when I would introduce him to my friends, he'd be like, "Watcha," like genuinely. And I was like, I always think of Tonks.
That is, I don't even know. What's the etymology? What is it supposed to be doing?
Like what you're doing? Let me look.
It's so weird.
Watcher meaning.
Yeah. Watcha.
Yeah, British slang term of greeting. What? But where does it come from? Oh, okay. Cockney for what cheer?
Oh, okay.
Adam doesn't like it.
It's not for me. It's just not for me, and that's okay.
Very few people even say that over here. Like, again, I've only heard one person of everyone I've met so far say it.
But to be fair, you're also not hanging around Cockney types.
No, that's
because you're not really in London.
No, but I was around like builders. So that type of kind of like vibe of someone that would say that. Yeah.
I will say you talked about a carpenter named Ash. And as someone who works with wood, I think Ash is a great name to have. I think that's very fitting.
Yeah.
I think you gotta go into woodworking if your name is Ash.
Yeah. Very on brand.
Yeah. Da-da-da-da-da-da. So Tonks doesn't look great. Tonks maybe looks ill, maybe looks sickly, maybe is not looking she's not looking great. It is funny that Harry does not put 2 and 2 together
right away.
Now. Yes. He like fully has forgotten who Tonks is and why she may be in this state.
Yeah.
So it's very sad. There's some weird British grammar things going on in this book, and I just want to reference them because obviously the last time I read this book was the night it came out. So I was like flying through this. And now that I'm, kind of poring over every word, I'm noticing some things that I think, because I obviously have the
OG.
The American Scholastic version. So they have corrected things like you'll never find a COLOUR. You'll never find an NEIGHBOUR, right? Like they've corrected some of those. But I think in the early books, they were more cognizant of like things that would sound weird to an American ear. But by this point in the series, she just can write whatever the hell she wants and they are going to publish it.
Yeah.
Okay? They might correct spelling mistakes, and that's about it. Wait. Okay, so one I noticed was Dumbledore is talking. Oh no, Molly is talking to Tonks. And Molly says, "Dear, why not come to dinner at the weekend? Remus and Mad Eye are coming." And again, we know they're British. I'm not saying that they shouldn't say this, but it's weird. It's things that on the ear, I'm like, oh, I didn't know that that's how British people talked. Why not come to dinner at the weekend? At the weekend is weird to me.
Yeah.
This weekend.
Yeah.
Why not come to dinner
I would say this
weekend?
Weekend as well. Yeah. At the weekend.
But I didn't know if this was a Britishism or if this was a Dumbledoreism.
Oh, where?
Dumbledore says, "Well, I shall see you at Hogwarts, Harry," said Dumbledore. "Take care of yourself. Molly, your servant." He made Mrs. Okay, so that's probably just Dumbledore. Thing. But then it goes right into, he made Mrs. Weasley a bow. And I was like, that's a really weird way to phrase that. Because you would say...
He bowed to Mrs.
Weasley.
Yeah.
Weird. Okay, just some fun things I was noticing while I was reading.
It's so funny though how that
everyone's
happens,
tuned out of this podcast. Everybody's like, who cares?
Come back in, guys. Come back in.
Come back in. We're good.
It's so funny though, like you can tell sometimes when you go into a series and it's just gotten to the point where like they just let the author write whatever they want to write.
Oh, fully.
Like book 5, for example, or like book 4, like those are the ones that start to get really hefty. And like, that's when they became really in demand. Similarly, these books right here on my shelf by Sarah J. Maas. Like I just saw a thread the other day where someone was like, what is Friedrich's trying to knock that pillow off again? I love that he does that. It's just so funny because every time he does it, it literally looks like he's like, bitch, like get off, bitch.
Because he likes to lay in the corner of the
yeah, it's just so funny because he doesn't do it like softly, like it's always like so like
but it's also weird because he could just lay on the pillow, but he's like no,
he doesn't want to. He's like only me, I can only be on, I'm the only person that can be on this couch, or only being. But yeah, there's like certain books where you're just like, where was the editor for this? They're just giving them free reign now, I guess. All right.
Yeah. So Harry and Molly are finally alone. He explains that they had like gone to Slughorn to help get him to come to Hogwarts. Mm-hmm. Molly asks what Harry thought of Slughorn, and he was like, he's fine.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, Arthur, he's not a fan of Slughorn because Slughorn taught both Molly and Arthur. Mm-hmm. But he didn't see a lot of potential maybe in Arthur, so he kind of ignored him. He wasn't one of his favorites. Yeah. One of the chosen ones. And she was like, and I don't know why he would think that there's not a ton of potential because obviously Arthur has plenty to offer. And Harry's like, okay, well, something happened. And
he's like,
finds out very quickly that Arthur has gotten a promotion. Mm-hmm. He is the head of the Office for the Detection and Confiscation of Counterfeit Defensive Spells and Protective Objects. Mm-hmm. That is a wordy title.
Quite a full title.
Yeah. But congrats, he has 10 people now reporting to him. So very exciting. I don't know if that's a congrats.
I'm like, that sounds stressful.
It sounds stressful, but
the head of a team, though. Yeah,
I'm sure Arthur can handle it. He is fully equipped, which is very exciting.
Sorry, can I say something real quick? Yeah. Do you know what I didn't like about the bit of when she was talking about Slughorn? Again, this is like a Jo thing, not Molly. She's like talking about, instead of sharing her experience with Slughorn, she's like sharing Arthur. She's like, Arthur's. Oh yeah, he didn't see very much in Arthur. It's like, okay, but like, what about you? Like, what's your story or your connection with him? Why are you like just talking about your husband and his experience and like what he thought of him? I was just like, I didn't like that. Did you catch that?
It's like, also funny because it's a funny way for them to again not explain that he was the potions professor.
Yeah,
it's like another way to like
avoiding it. Yeah,
we're still avoiding it so it can be a surprise.
I do, however, like that everyone is having the same kind of feeling about Slughorn. Like anyone that's been asked about him so far is kind of just like, yeah, he's not, like how Dumbledore was like, yeah, he's not necessarily like the greatest guy. And then Molly's like, I know what you mean. I don't really like him. He's like, what she said, he can be charming when he wants to be.
Yeah.
So like if he feels like he can get something out of you, he'll put on the charm. But like just someone that is very, I don't know, not like two-faced necessarily, but just very different depending on who's in the room, who they can, if it's someone they think they can gain something from.
Right. Molly has started carrying the infamous Weasley house clock around. The one that has the mortal peril because everyone's constantly at mortal peril. I don't even know at what point this would be helpful Because if everyone's just on mortal peril all the time, except if they're traveling, then like, how is it useful?
Is she trying to?
Is she worried that
moves to dead?
To dead?
Yeah.
Oh God, Molly.
No.
Molly, we gotta talk to somebody.
I know. I was like,
it's very upsetting.
I think it's probably just more like anxiety more than anything that she just is trying to have some semblance of like feel like some.
Well, we remember what her greatest fear is from the Boggart last book.
Yeah. So I think it's just like, yeah. I mean, to be fair, being a mother of 7 children when something like that is going on, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just a lot scarier when you have that many children out in the world versus just like one that is at home with you. Like,
it was interesting. She says like that it's been like this basically since Voldemort came back to power. And she was like, but I don't know anybody else who has a clock like this, so I can't really ask to verify if anyone else is doing this. And then I was like, how do you have a clock? Where did you get this?
Tell us that.
Wait.
We want to know where this one was purchased.
I'm so curious where she got this. Because I guess up until this point, I had assumed that
it's like a family heirloom or something.
Or a family heirloom or something.
Yeah.
But then like.
But then how would the
way she phrased it, I was like, oh,
yeah.
So then. Did she send it for like a mail order? Like it was like on QVC?
or like a magazine. Like
yeah. It was like she was on a flight.
It was in Witch Weekly. It was like a special giveaway prize, one only in the world.
So Arthur comes home. He's late from work. They have to do the like
he's coming home at like 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah, he is following protocol as the ministry has suggested, so they have to ask each other personal questions that only they would know the answer to. So
while poor Harry's in the room.
So she asks him, what is the one thing you want to know like more than anything else in the world? And his answer is to find out how airplanes stay up. And you know what? Arthur, I'm a muggle and I cannot explain to you how airplanes stay up.
I think that's a great one.
That's fair enough. Then the alternate question for Molly is when they're getting saucy together, what does
when
Arthur
the smut is happening?
Yeah, when it becomes a Sarah J. Maas book.
Yeah. When it gets nasty.
What does Arthur call Molly? And apparently he calls her Molly Wobbles. Now, I'm going to let that alone. I thought I was going to go into that, but you know what? I think that's for you, the reader, the viewer, the listener, to decide in what context that means.
Do you know what?
What is he referring to? Who knows?
Do you know what this reminds me of, Adam? When we were like, 14? And you were like, did anyone else see it jiggle?
That was in 8th grade.
I know.
I think we were 13. Yeah. 13 or 14. Yeah.
Had we not turned? We have not turned 14 yet.
I remember the day.
Oh, yeah, I don't.
Also, when I said that about Ari, guys, it was about Ari's big bootylicious, bodacious ass at 13 years old.
Big juicy booty.
Big juicy booty Ari.
I would hardly say it was a big juicy booty at that.
Well, sure.
I mean, I always had a booty, to be clear. But
yes, but for like white girls at 13.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I had like an running
apple.
laps
I had an
around
apple
the
bottom,
other girl. Yes.
Yeah. That I would literally get sent home for wearing pants that were fitted, Adam.
Oh my God, I didn't know
like,
that.
I was wearing navy colored pants or like khaki colored pants, which was the requirement.
The required uniform.
And then they would like ask my mom to bring me a different pair of pants to change because they were like too fitted on my butt. Just like, and keep in mind, the people that were saying this were like adult men walking through the hallways, like picking and choosing whose uniforms were inappropriate. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's just so gross. And then I just had to sit. So I was taken out of class and I had to sit in the office until my mother came and gave me pants. So I missed out on my lesson that day, whatever class I was in. I can't even remember. That's just so dumb.
I'm sure it was vital, whatever class it was.
But it's just stupid that like I'm taken out of class. Stupid. Like it's like for what? So you're interfering with my ability to learn.
You're taking me out of a class where I'm going to just be sitting down to go sit down somewhere else. Why?
Yeah. To change because you're uncomfortable with the fact that like I guess my butt looks nice to you, an adult. Like that's your problem.
You're sick.
Don't be looking at a 13-year-old girl's butt then.
But
gross.
Also, like, that's just your body. What? And like it was like the mid 2000s, so it was like that era of like fitted on top and then like flared.
Like, fitted, very like skin tight pants, but with a flared like bottom. Yeah,
flared bottom.
But that's what everyone was wearing. I mean, it's the same thing if like I wore a V-neck shirt, but because I don't have big boobs, no one says anything. But then a woman with big boobs wears a V-neck shirt and she can't help but have cleavage showing. And then it's like, oh, that's inappropriate. It's like,
do you watch, are you a Bridgerton?
Yeah.
What's her name who plays Penelope?
Nicola.
Nicola. Yeah. She just was like quoted in like, I don't even know, some interview where
I saw the clip.
She called herself part of the perfect breasted community.
Yes.
And I was like, that is iconic.
Yeah. She was like,
so
it's
funny.
Really difficult for people like me, a member of the perfect breast club community, like the perfect breast community. She was like, it's just really difficult for us, but I'm really proud to be a part of this community. Cause it's just so funny because she was the way she started saying it, you would have thought she was going to say something about like in a negative way. And so I love that she was like perfect breast community.
Yeah. It's so funny. So Harry's going to stay up. He finishes his food, by the way. He's been eating this whole time. Obviously, it's Molly.
Oh, yeah. Onion soup.
Ari's like worst nightmare.
My worst nightmare. That or an onion ring.
So he's staying in Fred and George's room because Fred and George have now taken to sleeping in the flat above their shop in Diagon Alley.
Moving on up.
Because they are
Diagon Alley.
They are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And they are making a name for themselves. Businessmen. So he goes to bed. He wakes up because Ron and Hermione came into the room and ripped open the curtain, letting sunlight pour into the room. And I was like, there's got to be a better way to wake up your friend. But I guess when you're teens, whatever.
Yeah, you just run in and like jump on the bed. That's what I would have done.
From the get-go, Hermione is like watching Harry. Watching. And Harry's like, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to talk about this. Because we know it's all about how has he been since Sirius has passed.
And as we know, Harry does not like to talk about his feelings.
And Harry is such a sharer. He's such a person willing to share all parts of himself. And so during this conversation, it's welcome back. Hi, how are you? What time did you get in? Blah, 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 blah. And they find out that Fleur is also staying at the Burrow. Or Harry finds out that Fleur is staying at the Burrow.
But he finds out by her walking into the room. So he thinks that
they start talking about someone, and he thinks they're talking about Molly, but in like a really weird way.
Talking Molly.
And then Fleur walks into the room. By the way, Ginny's here as well.
Oh yeah, Ginny.
It's very important to know that Ginny is also in the room. So then Fleur comes in, and it's typical Fleur. Okay, the one thing I will say is that I love any treatment or any stereotyping of one group of people, and it is the French. I think it is so funny. Anytime it's like, oh, there's an excess, but they also like are so abrupt and will just say like whatever. There's no filter. They just are like, oh, I hate that I just have to deal with chickens and cows here. It's so boring. And like, that's so funny. That is like my favorite part of this entire situation with Fleur. Everything else, like I feel like I'm like, okay. So Bill and Fleur are engaged officially, and their wedding is obviously next year because Fleur kind of references it during this passage. And Molly, who has also brought food up to Harry, has brought his breakfast. Technically, Fleur brought it in, but Molly made the food. Blah blah blah. It doesn't matter. Molly is not thrilled about this prospect, as you can tell from her face alone. Fleur leaves the room. She has this like funny line where she's like, "There's nothing to do here, LOL, but whatever, ha ha ha. At least you're here now, so I can have someone to talk to." Which is again really funny because she's like, "Girl, there's so many people here."
Yeah.
Leaves the room. And immediately we get this like, is it that, okay, okay. So,
I mean, to be fair, she doesn't say anything to anyone else in the room except Harry. So
No. And I'm not saying like Fleur is one of our greatest literary characters ever written, and she's such a like moral compass that we all should like follow.
No.
But also she does not exhibit any traits in which we should think that she deserves the kind of like shit
to be called like a cow
that is about to happen.
Yeah.
So Ginny has started calling her Phlegm. And from a pure joke standpoint, I think that's not even like funny. It's like not even really close enough
to Fleur.
Like, to Fleur. It's just kind of like lazy. So I would go back to the drawing board on that one, Ginny. But then does it feel like to you, again, we're in this classic era of Jo is revealing herself.
Yeah.
It's that Jo doesn't like femininity, right?
Yeah, well, or just like she basically everyone, the boys all lose their mind because of her beauty. Then the girls are like annoyed because of it. Like, I'm just like, okay, why is it? It's just like all the petty bullshit of like, oh, that woman's beautiful, so every other woman hates her.
Yes.
And they just like, there's no like friendship or anything between them because she's just so beautiful. Like, I'm like, what? And then when Harry is like, well, she was smart enough to do stuff in the tournament and stuff, then they're all like, oh, not you too. Like, I'm like,
yes, Hermione specifically stupid. Is like, Hermione like basically is like, so she's dumb. To which that's Harry's rebuttal is like, well, she can't be dumb because she wouldn't have made it in the Triwizard Tournament.
It's just, I mean, it's either this or like, oh, well, she's not really that pretty. Like, if you actually look at her, she's like, that's always the stupid, petty argument that someone will make up to bring another woman down, basically. And I just am like, this is what you want to do? The only bit of it that I liked and thought was funny was when she flipped her hair and it hit Mrs. Weasley in the face. I thought that was funny. Just because it's like so oblivious to like...
Yeah. The frustrating, like, okay, so then they go into this, like, kind of like, here's what's going on. Molly thinks that Bill should be with Tonks. That's why she keeps inviting Tonks over, because maybe, like, they'll spark an interest in each other or whatever. That's not going to happen, guys. And then that's, okay, yeah. And that's fine, because, like, that is a classic... Honestly, it's a little boring, but it's a classic like mother-in-law situation. Like the mother-in-law doesn't like the soon-to-be daughter-in-law, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's like tried and true trope. It goes from that, though, into this absolutely bonkers conversation where we are now being like, well, I'd say like Fleur's like a 9. Tonks is maybe like a 6.5 on a good day.
Yeah, it's like mid.
So bro-y out of nowhere. And it's weird.
The fact that he says like no bloke in his right mind's gonna like fancy Tonks with Fleur around. Like I just was like, why is this what you want to write?
Why?
Like this,
why?
It just is like, wow, you are so progressive when it comes to women, Joe. Yeah.
Yes,
that's really what I'm getting from this.
She's such a woman's woman, you know what I mean? She's such a girl's girl. I'm sick.
Yeah, it was just, and it's not, I mean, we don't get like a lot more of it, but it does continue this idea. It's just, and I just hate it. I just hate that it's like, because I don't think, especially with Fleur, like coming from growing up with a little sister and stuff like that, like I just very much see Fleur as like a girl's girl in my mind.
Yeah.
Maybe not like the warmest person or the nicest person, but I'm like, I just don't think, I mean, well, we get shown more of her character like later in the series where it's kind of like obviously shows she stands by Bill's side even when he doesn't. Yeah, anyway. But like, I'm just like you said, there isn't anything that she's done that is so atrocious.
Right.
That like they should be bashing on her this badly.
Right. And like, yes, she is like abrupt and very French.
Yeah, maybe she hasn't talked to them. But again, Joe, why is that how you want this to go?
It's just so weird. It's so much like telling us how Fleur is, but not actually like showing us who Fleur is, because I don't think Joe likes Fleur as a character. It's so bizarre to me. I mean, clearly she didn't. I don't think Joe liked her from the beginning, because I think the whole point in
how we talked about last
it, she was always last in every challenge during the Triwizard Tournament. Even though
I think that's like gender bullshit again. I think that's her being like, oh, well, she's the only woman, so obviously she won't win. And I'm like,
yes,
Joe.
Yes. And there is a level of like, I can't ever tell if she's doing like I'm showing that this is what the patriarchy is and how it affects people, or if it's like she's not actually critically thinking about it at all.
I don't think so. Like, I don't even think that's what's happening a little bit. Because again, like just how it's so the mom thing. I always come back to the mom thing. Mm-hmm. Like so many characters are literally just mothers, or like
their one defining trait is I am a mother.
Yeah. Other than the only one we've got is like Tonks. And then the other ones are either like nurses or teachers.
Mm-hmm. Or librarians.
Yeah. Work at a school with children.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's like, all right. It's just exhausting. It's like, because it's
or
disappointing.
Villains. That's the other option.
Or villains.
Or a nightmare person.
It's just annoying because it's like, especially with like Hermione. Well, Hermione and Ginny, actually, they're both there. Like, just that they immediately like gang up and they're like, oh yeah, she's horrible. Like, I'm just like, this is what we're doing. I don't think we get like another. I don't know. I mean, we don't really ever get.
Wouldn't it be
funnier?
Like, wouldn't it be funny? And like, unfortunately, it's so frustrating because it really does feel like Joe has written Hermione as a character to not have a sense of humor so often. But like, this scene would be so funnier if Hermione was just like needling Ron and being like, "You still have a crush on her? You still think she's pretty?" Like, that's so much funnier than like being like, "Oh." She like describes that she has to walk all the way to the other side of the room and then runs out of space, so she glares at Ron. And I'm like, what's happening? This is so dumb. And also the other thing that's so stupid about the whole situation is she's part Vila. She cannot help that she looks like that. Is just what she looks like.
But that's like any woman that is like beautiful and gets like ostracized for literally being beautiful. Like it just makes no sense. She has no control over the fact that she just happens to be like hot.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's so strange.
But this is the thing. It's always like, oh my God, you should love the attention, or, you know, you should be grateful for how you look. But then like also you like this bullshit, you get treated like that. So I'm like, and this is why I'm saying, okay, so then that's what you think, Joe, about like a woman that's beautiful? Like you think that all the other women are going to like shit talk her basically, and all the guys are just gonna like be like blah, 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 blah.
Like, it's so goofy.
I'll never forget in the last book when Harry like stormed out or like away from his date and then like under his breath muttered women, and I was like, a woman wrote this shit.
Yes.
Like I'll never forget that. That was bonkers. I'm like, you wrote this?
She sucks. So there's some we've got some survivor's guilt from Tonks that's revealed over Sirius.
Yeah.
She feels personally responsible as she was the one kind of battling Bellatrix, that if she had maybe finished Bellatrix off, then this wouldn't have happened. And unfortunately, with all of these types of like trauma, PTSD, survivor's guilt, there's nothing you can say to like ease it, because it's just you have to like work through it.
Right.
But it's very sad. And it is a little silly that Harry hasn't even thought about like, oh yeah, they're cousins. Maybe that's why.
It's wild too, because what I didn't catch was that this is probably what brought her and Remus together. And especially if we're thinking that like Remus and Sirius had some type of relationship, if they are bonding essentially over their like shared loss, but then some like some people catch some feelings, then it's like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. I didn't think of it that way when I read this part originally. I was like, oh, okay.
So Ginny has left the room because she's gone to... I just need to explain that Ginny's not in the room anymore. Ginny's not in the room. She's gone to help with breakfast or whatever. She's cooking. I don't know. Something's happening. And so now that it's just the Golden Trio, Harry reveals the tea about not only his private lessons with Dumbledore, but also the prophecy and what it says in the prophecy. He doesn't tell them what the full prophecy says, but just the one big line, which is neither can live while the other survives.
Yeah, he doesn't want to scare them too much. He's like, I'll just leave that bit out.
A little breadcrumb.
More for himself. He doesn't want to have to like talk about the scary bit. It sounds like he doesn't want to see their reactions, basically. And
there's first of all, there's this really goofy part where Hermione had been looking at like a joke telescope, and it punches her in the face and gives her a black eye. That's very goofy. But I really liked this passage. This is like one of the first times in this entire book series Harry has been actually vulnerable with his two friends. His two supposed best friends.
There is a bit of progress here, yeah.
A warmth was spreading through him that had nothing to do with the sunlight. A tight obstruction in his chest seemed to be dissolving. He knew that Ron and Hermione were more shocked than they were letting on, but the mere fact that they were still there on either side of him, speaking bracing words of comfort, not shrinking from him as though he were contaminated or dangerous, was worth more than he could ever tell them. That's lovely.
The power of talk therapy. Am I right?
The power of just like being open and honest with your friends.
Yeah.
Wow. Who'd have thought?
Vulnerability.
So this conversation wraps up. They go downstairs. Hermione tries to get treated by Molly, who knows like some simple like first aid magic. But her black eye isn't going away, so they're probably going to have to find out from Fred and George how to remedy that, because it's definitely not a normal black eye. And then we go into this whole segment of Hermione's like, have the owls come?
Oh, yeah, right.
Has the
that's
post
why they
arrived?
Came downstairs, yeah.
Has the post arrived? And Molly's like, no, I haven't seen anything yet. And so Hermione is very anxious about the results of the OWLs coming in.
She's spiraling.
And lo and behold, the mere seconds after she reveals this, 3 owls appear on yonder. And they fly in, and they're very majestic. And they I like the description of they all hold their feet out in unison for them to remove the little they are trained. These are trained owls. These are official owls. So they open their owls. Harry has received all passing grades, except for divination and history of magic. Divination, there was no way he was going to pass because what the hell was that class? And also history of magic, he did famously pass out in the middle of that exam. Yeah. So he wasn't going to get that one. Ron has received 7 owls. He's passed 7 of his OWLs, which apparently is more than what Fred and George got combined.
So one of them got 3 and one of them got 4.
Yes. Or no, they both had to he got more than they got combined. So they had to get 6
so they both
at the
got
most.
3. Yeah. They both would have gotten 3.
Dear God. Well, one of them was definitely charms because they're brilliant.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And maybe transfiguration. Maybe
transfiguration.
Yeah.
And maybe I feel like it should be potions. Should be the other one if you have to make candy and shit.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
You know
but
what
I don't
mean?
know with Snape. Yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah, well, Harry... Okay, I'll talk about potions in a second. And then Hermione got 10 outstandings and only 1 exceeds expectations. So
which she's bummed about.
She's a little upset with herself.
Yeah.
She's passed all 11. So congrats to Hermione. Now, one of the grades that Harry got was an exceeds expectations for potions. Mm-hmm. If you want to be an Auror, one of the requirements... Or no.
For Snape.
One of the requirements to be an Auror is you have to get a newt. You have to get
in potions.
In potions. In order to continue into advanced potions, for Snape, you have to get an outstanding. But because he had gotten exceeds expectations...
Yeah.
He wasn't going to go to advanced potions, therefore he was never going to get that, so he was never going to be an Auror. And the chapter ends with him being the realization of him not being able to ever have his dream job.
Of being an Auror.
And of being a detective.
Yeah, a trained hit wizard.
A trained hit wizard. And that's where the chapter ends. Harry's bummed about his future.
Well, sorry, Harry.
For now.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you, Adam. That was great.
Thanks.
That wraps up this chapter. Next week, we'll be reading chapter 6, Draco's Detour. I just wanted to say detour. Draco's Detour. We do not have a review this week, so hopefully we'll have one next time. Listeners, readers, I'm winking. Listeners, since you can't see that.
I'm winking.
I'm winking. You can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts, as well as video versions on the Ampliverse YouTube channel and Spotify. I did not take a big enough breath before I went to read that sentence. As always, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so that we can get a perfect Newt score. 5 stars only, or else Hermione and Ginny will shit talk you.
Yeah.
For
and you don't
20
want
minutes.
That. You don't want
I certainly do not.
A half-assed nickname that people use to make fun of you with.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at HBAnxious or YouTube and TikTok at The Ampliverse. We are hosted on Spotify for podcasters, so thank you to them, and are a proud member of The Ampliverse. Check them out at theampliverse.com. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Ari.
And as always,